Hi, Mr. Benjamin. Can you hear me? Hello. On behalf of CIIC. A quick introduction about CIIC to participants who are joining us for the first time. CIIC is Crescent Innovation and Incubation Council. We are a center of excellence in the life science space funded by BIRAC. Our goal is to help entrepreneurs in the early stage, specifically in the life science space and across multiple sectors to grow. And a quick few numbers about CIIC. At present, there are 36 startups incubated at CIIC, along with 21 student startups. We are also into encouraging the next generation of entrepreneurs to grow and become larger businesses. Till date, 70 lakhs has been generated through government grants for our startup entrepreneurs. Government has funded directly them through different grants, and also an amount of 39 crores has been raised through private equity. Pharmagain also happens to be one of the companies who has raised funds through external investors. And I'm also very happy to introduce you to the speaker for today, Mr. Benjamin Raja. He has over 15 years of experience in corporates such as Honeywell across multiple countries. So he's a corporate executive turned an entrepreneur who is doing exceedingly well. And he has deep exposure to industrial automation, aerospace, and which has helped him to look at agriculture from an industrial view. So he's brought in his industrial experience into the startup space. Pharmagain was established in the year 2013, which is his company, with the goal of making agriculture sustainable, predictable, and profitable. So over to Mr. Benjamin, and a quick instruction to participants. I can see most of the messages are being sent to all only panelists. I request you to send messages to all attendees so that everyone can see your message. So over to Mr. Benjamin. Thank you.
Hey, thanks Akshay for the beautiful introduction.
Yeah.
Hey, good evening, all of you. And I can see about over 100 participants right now, 115. Amazing to see such big numbers. So just a quick introduction. My name is Benjamin. As Akshay said, I used to work for Honeywell, and I was exposed extremely well into the industrial automation segment. And that's how, when I saw agriculture and industrial automation gave new thoughts about how we can bring the industrial automation ideas into agriculture. So that's how this company was given a shape in 2013. So as you can see in the opening slide, there is a quick meaning behind both the words Pharmagain and harvest the unharvested. So essentially, Pharmagain as a name was coined because in our context, there are a lot of people who go away from farming into other more lucrative business models or job opportunities. So we wanted to start a company that will essentially attract people to look at farming with a different perspective, where they can see potentially they might see farming as a lucrative career opportunity. So that's how this word farm again was coined. And harvest the unharvested has been a tagline from day one. That's more of an Indian context again, because any crop that we grow in India, if you compare that with the productivity levels of different countries, other countries, which I will go into detail in my slides, there is a lot that we can do better. And which is why we coined a tagline as harvest the unharvested. So there is a lot that can be harvested, which is not being done as of today. So we were established in 2013. The whole idea was to make agriculture sustainable, predictable, and profitable. Predictability is something that is completely missing in agriculture, which is where we are really closely working on. And we thought we can do this by making farms truly connected, just like a factory or an industrial automation area. We wanted to make the farms connected and make them function autonomously and give them artificial intelligence. So just a brief about what a startup is all about. So startup, in my view, is also an enterprise, but it is in its infancy, and it is called a startup until it gets to a mature stage. And in today's world, the word startup is also used for any first generation business. Anyone who starts a business who does not have a previous business background is also called a startup. So I think the startups generally come about with two things. One is the idea and the business model. Sometimes it is one of them. Sometimes it is both. So if you look at Geo, for example, it's a large corporate, but it's quite new. I mean, maybe it's about 3-4 years old company, but we don't call it as a startup. So Geo as a company came into existence purely with its money power and business model. It was a great business model. So business model backed up with money is one aspect. The other aspect, when you look at all the startups, they don't necessarily start with the business model. Very few do, but most of them start with idea. There is a challenge or an opportunity somebody sees, and they think there is a solution that they can bring to the table. And as they work on the idea towards a solution, they also bring a business model around it. That's how most of the startups mushroom. And we happen to be one of those that started with an idea, then coined business model around the idea and along the journey. So what was our idea? It was just one single thing. High productivity was the only idea that we had picked up. And all our journey has been on just this one idea. So if you look at these pictures, it might tell you a story. The way that, I mean, I just picked up these from Google, but look at how dense these tomatoes and the eggplants are. And you can compare this what you generally see in the shop. So we wanted to focus primarily on high productivity, highest possible productivity rather. That was the only idea that we started off with. And why this idea is productivity? Here is a slide that gives you an answer to that. So here are some crops which are grown in the largest areas within India. So this is sorted with the highest area in cultivation. And all of these are horticulture crops. So starting with coconut, which is grown in the largest land in India, and followed by mango, onion, banana, so on and so forth. Now, if you look at the last two columns, productivity in India, which is metric ton per acre.
Sorry to interrupt. There seems to be lower volume from few participants' side, so they wanted to be a little louder.
Okay. So can I just connect my headphone? Give me a second. Is it better by any chance?
Participants, if the audio is clear, when we can proceed, please give a raise of hands so that we can, based on that, we can proceed. Yeah, I think audio is clear, so I think we are good to go.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. So as you can see in this slide, the productivity, the last but one column is the productivity in metric tons per acre, and the last one is productivity in metric ton per acre for Asia. So India versus Asia. And if you take India versus Europe, the number is different. India versus the US, the number is different. So look at this second line, mango. 3.24 tons is our Indian average productivity per acre, and 8.75 is the Asian average. And onion 6.53 and 18.85. So I don't need to read it, you can see it. For example, take a look at tomato, about 9.5 tons in India versus approximately 43 tons Asia. And tomato as a crop has been a favorite crop for a lot of people to compare productivity. And while we talk about 9.5 tons and 42 tons, there are countries in the world which have even touched 400 tons per acre in a year. So the bottom line is that there is a gap between the productivity that our government has been publishing per acre every year and the data that we get for Asia. And this is obviously an opportunity that we had picked up and wanted to work in improving the productivity. So from 2013 to now, what you see on the left side, we called as void pesticide earlier. So this was a standard we developed. So the starting point of a journey was we defined this standard based on a number of trials and pilots in many parts of Tamil Nadu and some states in India, where we came up with the standard, which to an extent guarantees a very high productivity. For example, while in a place called Udumalpet, which is near Coimbatore, in 2014, we met up with about 50 farmers who were hardcore tomato growers, and that happens to be a tomato belt. When we interviewed them, they said their average productivity was somewhere around 5 tons per acre. And with this standard called void pesticide, which combines non-toxic method of cultivation and high productive methods. So we were able to achieve about 80 plus tons in the same area in 2014. And that's where we started. So we had a practice which was derived based on a lot of trials we did. And that practice was being demonstrated to a lot of farmers across different regions. And we were trying to improve productivity. So until about 2015 or 2016 middle, we were doing that. And while we were at it, the farms that were producing such high volumes, Farm Again as a company, as a startup, we were facilitating buying those producers from the farms and supplying to the corporate retailers such as Reliance, Big Bazaar, Big Basket, all of them. You name any large corporate retailer, we were supplying to them from our farmers who were producing based on our standards. So while we achieved 80 tons, as I said in Udumalpet, the glorious numbers didn't continue actually. The history was that we get a high number, and in the next cycle, we couldn't sustain it. So the 80 in the next cycle became about 25. So that's when we were trying to take a hard look at what do we do? I mean, you were able to get a 5 tons productivity to 80 tons, but then couldn't sustain. And that's when my past career experience, which was in industrial automation, came a little handy, because I was then starting to think, how do we deploy the industrial automation knowledge into agriculture? So what you see on the right-hand side of this slide is the product that we brought to the market, which is an autonomous irrigation and fertigation system, which takes the practice like void pesticide, or it can take any practice that exists anywhere in the world, and it can ensure that the practice is followed in the farm with no human oversight whatsoever. So, like I said before, the objective was high productivity, and we had a practice to achieve the high productivity. And because we couldn't sustain by ensuring everyone in the ecosystem did follow the process, the rules set forth to be able to achieve the high productivity repeatedly, we then moved on to produce or make an electronics and software which was built over machine learning and artificial intelligence, which could do what the humans otherwise couldn't do in following any practice, including void pesticide or any other Israeli practice as well. So we named it as Grotron. So Grotron is our product line that we now have in the market. So 2013 to now, like I said, we started with an idea, evolved into a product line, rather a solution. So with this product and solution, and with the idea that we had of high productivity, what do we address? What are the challenges we address? So one, um, with the high precise electronic driven irrigation model, we use water based on the feedback we get from the sensors, which means it is highly accurate. Therefore, water is used only as required. Therefore, uh, we do address to an extent depletion of groundwater, which is a major threat. And for some of you who may or may not know, um, apparently about 85% of India's fresh water is used for agriculture. And of that, about 50% comes from underground. So this we thought was a major focus area that we should have. And the second challenge that we think we are able to address with the solution that we have in hand is shrinking arable land with the high population, the urbanization, the industrialization. Most of it only impacts the agriculture and the arable land, not just in India, anywhere in the world. So that is a challenge that needs to be addressed. So how do we address? Again, by improving productivity to the highest possible level. The next, very, very important, both in India and in most of the developing countries, is the soil infertility, which is primarily caused because of uh, almost mindless application of fertilizers, um, either mindless or people applying fertilizers because it is cheaper, not necessarily because it helps in giving you higher productivity, but because it is cheaper. Or it is because uh, those are the only fertilizers available for a community in a certain region. Therefore, they end up applying that fertilizer so much that the soil becomes infertile. So Grotron, our product, can help there as well by being able to program a fertigation plan, and then the system automatically ensuring the right amount of fertilizers at the right time are injected to the right areas of the farm, again without human interference. And the last but not the least, what we thought we are now doing is we are actually attracting the new generation people who otherwise were happy abandoning farming and doing something else. With a new technology-driven and predictable model of agriculture ecosystem, and we believe we are more likely to retain those people in farming itself, at least some of them, if not all. So this is our solution overview. If you can take a look at the left side, and some of you who might have farming background might be able to understand and appreciate instantly. And for the others, it might be slightly difficult, but I'll try to explain as much as possible. On the left side, the four um, rectangle shaped plots where you see the icons of some hardware being shown called crop sense. So those are our devices that are placed deep into every farm. If there are 10 plots and we place them in each of those 10 plots, which will read all the parameters as necessary. I mean, it can read any parameter as long as there is a sensor available in the world. And the parameters that are read then are communicated to the cloud through the wireless communication medium. And we use LoRa, for example, to communicate within the farm and to collect the data from the farm back to the cloud. So we get data from each of the plots, and what you see on the same picture right next to the plots, which looks like a house, I mean, that depicts a protected structure. There are two types of protected structures in India, typically called net house and polyhouse, where which are installed primarily to avoid pest infestation and protect it from the adverse climatic conditions, so that some artificial environment can be created inside for a better and higher productivity. So our system can also read the climatic parameters from sitting inside those structures, and the data from there as well is then passed on to the cloud through LoRa network. And on the top left again, you see some 4 tanks, which looks like your water tanks. These tanks depict the fertilizer tanks. So in our Groton system, you can have any number of tanks installed. Each of them can have a different fertilizer, or some of them together can have the same fertilizer irrespective. And in a real farm, similarly, there are some farms which just have one pump and some have more. So you can connect any number of pumps to our system. And once you have done all this, and there is a lot of configuration that needs to be done, geofencing of the farm, geofencing of each of those plots. Once this is all done, then the farm is on autonomous mode. So in autonomous mode, I mean, what that means is that based on the real-time data that come from the plots, the decisions are taken real time. So there is a machine learning component that is inside, which learns patterns from the data that comes from the end plots or the net house or any of those parameters, and then decides what needs to be done next. It could be that a plot needs irrigation. It could be that a protected structure needs fogger or a refrigerant to be operated to bring the climate down, or it could be that a pump needs to go on, or fertilizer from, let's say, tank number 5 needs to be injected at 2 liters per acre calculation for 4 acres. So you can have any kind of calculation, and the system follows it autonomously. And the screenshot, the mobile screenshots that you see here are the mobile apps which are available on both iOS and Android, which give you a snapshot of what's happening inside a farm. So you can get to know whether the plot is well irrigated, or it needs to be irrigated, or is it being currently irrigated, currently being supplied with fertilizers, how is the weather condition, is it likely to increase the pest infestation in the near future, is it likely to rain, and what needs to be done if it rains. So all kinds of data you get to see on your mobile app. And we generally call it as a 360-degree precision farming ecosystem. So as you can see on the middle of this slide, our system is capable of handling any crop, which includes vegetables, plantations, and even rice, pulses, and cereals. And a lot of us think that only vegetables and plantations can be cultivated with micro irrigation and automation. But actually, even crops like paddy and banana or sugarcane, cereals and pulses can actually be grown really well with micro irrigation. So in that sense, our system can work with any of them in tandem and help in increasing the productivity. So on this deck, on the top right side, phase 0 live. So that's where we are today. So we have demonstrated a minimum of 30% increase in productivity, and in some cases we have demonstrated even 15 times, which is 1,500 percentage increase in productivity. But it has been a minimum of 30% in any case, and there has been a saving of 30 to 70% of irrigation water, and the fertilizer usage in most cases compared to a micro irrigated farm comes down by about 10 to 35% when we run any farm with Grotron. And we're also on our way developing the future of artificial intelligence in agriculture. So we are, while we have fertilizer recognition module already, we are now strengthening the artificial intelligence over there in order to identify the fertilizer requirement for any crop real time, and then communicate the same with a vendor who might be selling it in the near vicinity, so that the right fertilizer arrives at the farm at the right time and it is supplied to the plant when needed. And we are also working on artificial intelligence, another module, which is likely to help in predicting almost accurately the level of harvest that can be expected, let's say, in a mango farm or any farm, taking into consideration the weather pattern, the pest infestation, and the kind of irrigation pattern, the fertigation pattern. So it should be able to predict the kind of harvest that can be expected from a farm, and subsequently communicate the same with people who might be looking for such producers. When I say people, the B2B buyers who might be looking for such products. And we're also working on pest and disease identification. And it is not just identification. It'll, I mean, we are working on an auto remedy once it is identified. So we believe a combination of all of these can make agriculture really sustainable. And with what we have done so far, from a technology point of view and the process and practice point of view, if our solution is implemented in about approximately 2 lakh acres in India, what it can do. So approximately 52,000 crores of liters of water can be saved in a year. It's a huge number, and which directly translates to less running of irrigation pump, which means about 3,500 megawatts of electricity can be saved in a year. I mean, these two numbers are bare minimum that we calculated. And about 20 to 30% of reduction in fertilizer usage overall. And with about 600 crores of additional income in the hands of farmer because of the higher productivity. And today, agriculture is highly labor intensive. And with our system, the labor dependency can come down, and it needs to come down because there are not much laborers available for agriculture. I mean, most farms suffer because of lack of laborers. So it can be a boon to those farmers. And with the ecosystem that we've created, we believe it can actually boost a lot of micro rural entrepreneurship because of the hyperlocal intelligence that being provided by our system. And we also think that it can help in the long run, not now, but in the long run, in some sort of a potential reverse migration as we start to demonstrate higher profits in agriculture. So these are some of the data that you can see. I mean, I'm not going to get into the details of what these are, but the point is, agriculture, where generally things have been on gut feel, now we are giving so much of data in the hands of farmers where they can take a look at quite a number of different types of data, slice and dice, do different types of settings and operations, and they can run the farm the way they like. So so when you take a look at these screenshots, you can see that a highly structured way of operation is being brought into agriculture using the modern technology, combining both the IoT and modern pieces of software, which gives the greatest power to the hands of the farmers in increasing their own productivity and predictability. So just to get into a little deeper into the technology piece, So as you can all, you would have all guessed, Grotron is an IoT platform. So I'll just get back to this slide. So it is an IoT platform. So what that means is there are lots of small hardware that is placed inside the farm, which is responsible for collecting the data. And we have also developed um, a solar-based solenoid valve system, which operates on just a 3-volt battery. So a small solar panel which powers a 3-volt battery, which then operates a 12-volt solenoid valve. So by doing that, what we have done is we've eliminated pretty much the need for electricity to be drawn into the farm, except for the pump, obviously, where it is required. And even if the farm has solar-based pump, then even electricity is required, not required to operate the pump. So the farm can be completely on solar. So um, so going back to the technology piece, yes, it is built on IoT platform, highly energy efficient. With the 3-volt battery, it can operate valves in any part of the farm, and it works on LoRa communication protocol. So we have achieved a throughput of about 3 kilometers radius, which means about 28 square kilometers, I believe. So right from a very small farm to a very large farm can be controlled by a system called Grotron. And the data that is generated from the field, whether it is the soil moisture, the soil temperature, the electrical conductivity of soil and water, or the pH, which is the acidity or the alkalinity of, again, both the soil and water, or the nutritional parameters, or the weather data, um, uh, or the data about the quality of electricity that we get in the farms. So all kinds of this data is transferred to the cloud, and which is then used to make a lot of meaningful inferences. So for example, a farm which needs to be irrigated, let's say a part of the farm needs to be irrigated now, and the grid power is unavailable. So our system has the ability to automatically switch on the generator uh, and do the irrigation, and if fertilization is required, do the fertilization, and if temperature needs to be controlled in a protected structure, do that. And once everything is done, it can put off the generator and go to sleep mode. So that's how the data that is generated from different parts of the farm are used to make meaningful inferences, and not just meaningful inferences and communication to people, to the farmers, but act on the information on its own. And the data is also then used to, say, for example, we have a traceability module. So what it can do is, assuming a farmer has given consent to disclose his farming practices to the rest of the world, then what he can do is, he can, in addition to being able to run his farm autonomously, he can also record his harvest. And each of the harvests that he records is being given a unique code along with the QR code, free of cost. And he can then pass on this QR code to any of his buyers, which can disclose the kind of practice that he has followed in the farm, which can tell whether he used chemical pesticides, what was the quantity used, was that within the normal range, or was it alarmingly high. So all these kinds of information can be passed on from a farm to a B2B customer, to a B2C customer who's sitting in a house, who can scan the QR code and find out where the crop came from, who grew the crop, what was the practice followed. So all information about the cultivation practices can be disclosed to an end consumer. And the other important aspect is, in any agriculture practice, in addition to being, having to be highly precise in irrigation and fertilization for high productivity, the other challenge any farm always faces is the uh, pest and disease related challenges, which, in spite of being very careful with irrigation and fertilization, bring down the productivity because it's unforeseen, and oftentimes in vegetable crops especially, can be disastrous in a matter of a couple of days. So what we have done there is, again, by using simple technology, where we expect farmers who would like to use the pest and disease detection module to shoot a few random pictures of his crop here and there on a daily basis, and just shoot those pictures with a app, and that's it. And the pictures then get uploaded to the cloud and processed, and they will be compared against any pattern which were stored in the past. And if it indicates that the crops are infested with something, and if the climatic data also suggests that yes, it might be such an infection, and what then is being done is that the farmer is communicated saying there is a likely infection of so and so pest or disease, and given the condition of the infection that is observed from the picture, and based on the climatic condition, he's then given an advice about how the pest is likely to spread in the next few hours to few days, and what he should do to come out of that. And it can go on to tell him what exactly is the remedy, and in what ratio the remedy has to be applied, where, how, and not just that, it also tells him that this remedy that is required to control this pest or disease is available in his neighborhood, in a particular shop A or B or C, and what are the price differences between those shops for the same product. And if that product is unavailable, and the system also has the ability to suggest the alternatives and their availability and their pricings as well. So uh, that's the other way of way how we have used information. And the third part where we've used information very efficiently is that the harvest predictive algorithm can start to predict the harvest almost right from the date of sowing. And as the crop nears its harvest time, the predictive model gets more mature, and it can actually keep the buyers informed much in advance. Say, for example, in 2019, the lot of these Arab countries had banned, not only Arab countries, a lot of European countries, which then was followed by Arab countries. They banned mango import from India. So the Indian market was flooded with mangoes, and a lot of these farmers who were producing for exports, who were generally following great practices, therefore they had mangoes which looked awesome in shape and color, but then they did not know where to sell, because if they go to the mandi, they get only throwaway prices, which they were not interested, or they were not happy. So when they lost the export opportunity, they were looking for good buyers who can give them premium, and then take their produce and sell it in the upscale markets. But these farmers didn't have such information. Therefore, either they ended up selling it in the local mandis, or some of them who were really annoyed ended up destroying their produces. And on the other hand, there are uh, buyers in India, especially in the urban areas, who were looking for export quality mangoes, which they can then sell to the high-end customer, as they call, who are willing to pay a high premium for a better looking and better tasting mangoes. But then what happened in 2019 mango season was that neither the farmers had access to such buyers, nor those buyers had access to the farmers. So the requirements from both sides existed, where the buyers wanted great export quality mangoes, and the export mango growers were looking for great buyers. But they never met each other. Therefore, such businesses didn't take place. So what we do with the data that we get, with the predictive algorithm, what we do is that the uh, results from the prediction algorithm is then passed on to the buyers of the right choice. So there can be a buyer who registers as uh, someone who is looking for organic produces, or someone who is looking for organic, let's say, brinjal alone, or someone who is looking for non-toxic method of cultivation produces, or somebody might be looking for anything and everything. So based on the choice of a buyer and based on what a farm grows, early information is being circulated between the buyers and the farmers, which we believe is a very wealthy set of information, which can help farmers avoid distress sale, as well as help buyers book what they need much in advance, so that both parties benefit. So these are some of the examples of how information is effectively used in the field of agriculture, which originally comes from a base IoT platform inside a farm, then is culminated into the cloud, processed, and made into give quite a lot of meaningful inferences. And as we speak, we are actually working towards making it even more user-friendly, more informative, and we are also looking at open sourcing some of our hardware platforms, so that people can start using it. Maybe even other startups can start using it, while we look at working on the higher value chain in the space of artificial intelligence, and giving more meaning to the end farmers. So just to give you a gist of our success stories with the product information that I shared so far, two success stories that I generally like to share. One is situated near Chennai, in a place called Vellore, where there is a 10 acres of protected cultivation, which is a shade net or a net house. And we installed our system in 2018, which was, this was also our first commercial implementation. And Vellore, as all of us know, is a very dry place, and dry and really, really hot, probably the hottest place in Tamil Nadu. And our system really helps a 10 acres farm there in making sure the irrigation, the fertilization, and the climate control is all done very efficiently. And even this farm does have a generator. So whenever the farm goes, the grid power goes off, then the generator is then kicked in automatically, and the farm runs on its own. So the farm always stays at its ideal state. And the other example I also love to quote is a farm which is near Coimbatore. It is a 20 acres of coconut farm, where after installing a system, we saw more than 70% reduction in water requirement. And we also saw signs of, the plants were highly stressed before we installed the system. And after we installed the system, not only did we see reduction in water usage, but also we started to see the crops becoming more, stress-free, and becoming more healthier. And these are some of the awards we received. Some of them are from the government of India, and a few of them outside. I mean, by other agencies like the IoT Next. Um, we were chosen as the most promising startup in agri-tech. Action for India, we were selected as the best social enterprise creating impact in the economic bottom of India. And the Department of Science and Technology has selected us twice for our contribution in the field of agriculture. And an organization called G10, Global Tamil Entrepreneurs Network in the US, had also recognized our work in the field of agriculture. So that's pretty much it from my side as a monologue. And thank you so much for patiently listening. And I would like to now answer any questions from the participant if there are any.
Sure. We have a Q&A section at the bottom of the screen, so there will be questions. Before we start the Q&A, we have a small poll which we have, which is basically rating the session. Since right now the content is at the peak, so rating from the participants about the content of the session. So participants will get a multiple choice question. It's only one question. Please rate accordingly based on the quality of the content. Yeah, you should be able to see in your screen right now. Okay, sir, I think we can move on to the questions. About 120 of the participants have voted, so we'll wait for the others to vote, but parallelly we can carry on with the questions, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. So, sir, at the bottom there's a Q&A section. Are you able to see the questions?
No, I'm not able to see it. I mean, I can click on Q&A. It shows 12 questions, but I don't get to see the actual questions. So I'm trying to figure that out.
Oh, is it? Okay. Fine, sir. I will read through the questions, or probably.
I can see them now.
Oh, there are 12 questions, sir, as of now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So is there going to be any moderation done, Akshay, by you? Or
no, sir. Sir, whichever question you please to answer, you can answer, and there are only limited number of questions, so they can be answered. There's no moderation as such from our end because we don't want to limit the answers. So you can go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So give me a few minutes while I go through the questions.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So as I just glanced through the questions, now the questions have grown to 26. The lot of questions are around cost, which I think will, I'm not sure, maybe I'll skip questions around cost. And if there are people who would actually like to know the pricing details, I would encourage them to maybe call me or call the toll-free number, which we can discuss. In the interest of time, we will focus on the technology facts. So there are some questions around the reliability of sensors. So maybe I'll start with the reliability of sensors. So we use partially homegrown, indigenously built sensors, and also there are some sensors that we procure from the market. Now, from a reliability point of view, see, agriculture is an activity that is done in, I mean, when you look at Indian context, vast majority of the agriculture is done in the open fields, not in protected structures, which means it is exposed to all kinds of adverse weather conditions. So we have tried our best in making the sensors uh, as robust as possible. So we haven't had much sensor failures. So they've been extremely robust. However, in places like Satyamangalam, for example, you have animal attacks that come. They destroy the whole thing and they walk away. So you can do nothing about that. But otherwise, on a regular wear and tear point of view, the sensors are robust. And any sensor, not only the what is built by us, but even otherwise, if you happen to buy a sensor from the market, if it was built exclusively for agriculture, most of them are built pretty robust. And like I said, our system can take sensors that are built by us, as well as any sensor in the market, as long as it follows a certain standards. So we follow a standard called RS-485. So people who understand technology would know that. So any sensor available in the market which follows RS-485 and which an end user believes is as robust as to his imagination can be attached to a system, then subsequently be calibrated to be able to operate the farm. So it does not have to be a particular sensor. Any sensor can be used. The other type of questions are, I think, around the number of sensors required. So it's like this. So the sensing is done on a sampling basis. So when we talk about sampling, typically the sample size is chosen based on the reality of a place. So assuming, let's say there is a 2 acres plot, and the entire 2 acres has an extremely uniform soil character, and the irrigation structure, the micro irrigation structure is absolutely perfect to be able to provide uniform pressure at each of the points. Then we are talking about probably having just one sensor placed in somewhere in that one plot and being able to make sense out of that. But if a particular plot has got ununiform soil characteristics from one part to the other, then ideally we will have to have sensors placed in different places. And in generally speaking, as part of the irrigation engineering, which is much before our system comes into picture, or even before the micro irrigation is fixed, as part of irrigation engineering, those soil characteristics are generally studied, and the plots are then subsequently divided based on the different types of soil characters. If it is not done, then while we evaluate the field for Groton implementation, we choose then maybe one spot or multiple spots depending on different characteristics to install sensors. So depending on the number of sensors, obviously there will be a difference in cost, but otherwise, technically, to the question, yes, there are multiple sensors required to be placed in multiple places if the plots are not uniform. And on top of that, what we do is, if a farm has got, let's say, 10 different plots, which in local agriculture language is typically referred to as gate valves. So say we will have to have a set of sensors placed in each of the gate valves, because that is one controlling unit in any farm. So from that's the minute place from where we read data. And then therefore, if there are 10 plots, obviously 10 sets of sensors have to be put in place. And similarly, if it is a protected structure, polyhouse or a net house, again it is similar. Typically, in a net house or a polyhouse that follows soil-less cultivation, the uniformity is much higher. Therefore, in one polyhouse, probably one set of sensors might be more than sufficient. But if it is if the cultivation is done with soil, then again my previous answer holds good, where depending on the different soil characters, the number of sensors will have to be decided. And there were also some questions around pest identification and the accuracy of pest identification. So we use the normal optical comparison for pest identification, which means it is an image processing technology which is used for pest identification. So as most of you in the session, I understand, are people from the professors and student community, you all understand image processing. So the goodness of results from image processing is equivalent to the goodness of the source images. So what we have done is that we have spent a lot of manpower in uh, collecting those images. We don't encourage or we don't add randomly picked up images to be added to the database, because most of the systems are built in the world with random images crawled from the internet, which we don't do. We choose pictures ourselves by spending our own money and resource, collecting those pictures and then mapping them ourselves for each crop, for each pattern. Therefore, the database is not corrupt, which is highly accurate, and we have highly qualified people who map those pictures into different categories. Therefore, and then subsequently the system has the ability to self-learn. But even in the self-learning, it is highly moderated. That means any picture that comes in is, before getting into the larger database, is moderated to ensure that the samples are not corrupted. Therefore, on an average, we have the ability to be highly accurate. Um, so we believe we will be able to maintain the manual intervention that we have been following so far, so that we maintain the high accuracy even in the days to come. And
there is another question which has come in chat. One of the attendees wanted to know how and where could farmers buy the product from? Is there any information which is available on that?
Yeah. So the one is they can contact the toll-free number or the email ID given here. It is, the marketing of this is done by the channel partners, and all of them have access to this toll-free number. So either someone can write an email to this email ID called info@farmagain.in, or can call toll-free number. I suggest writing an email so that it doesn't go missing and somebody for sure attends to it. So,
okay. So, would you want to take any more questions, or?
Yeah, I think I was trying to understand pattern from the questions and answer, and I think that is pretty much it. Unless if you noticed anything unique that you want me to answer.
Sir, as such, there are a few questions around the revenue model which I could see, but since you chose not to answer, that's not a problem. But still, if some light can be shared on the revenue model as such, that will help, because I can see a few participants. There are quite a few questions about the budget and the revenue model front. If there can be some information, that it will be helpful for the participants.
Sure. So, as far as the revenue model is concerned, like I said, we started off with an idea, then we evolved into a business model and a revenue model. So earlier, when we started off Farmagain, we were basically owners of a practice which ensured higher productivity with lower soil infertility and lower toxin in the producers. And we were picking up the vegetables from the farms and directly selling it to the corporate retailers. So we were making revenues from there. We were, in fact, bootstrapped until almost late last year or early this year. So we were making revenues from the vegetables that we sold, and we were using the profits from those sales to do R&D in further hardware manufacturing, artificial intelligence, application development, all of that. So until about 2019, that's what we were doing. And 2019, end of 2019 and early 2020 is when we went to the market and we got ourselves funded. And today we have a funding of about 4 crores from the market, and totally we are funded with about 8 crores right now. And as far as the business model is concerned, we have developed dealership network as well as OEM network. So when I say OEM networks, it is called white labeling. So there may be, there are companies that take our products and then name it into their product and sell it. So the hardware and the software platform is ours, and the marketing companies, the companies that front end sell it in their names, is one model. The second model is Growtron as it is sold through our dealer network. At the moment, we have a dealer network in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, and we are establishing in Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh as well. So we have been profitable and making revenues. The highest revenue we made was about $1 million in 2018 March, and then our idea of the practice, which is called void pesticide, we were slowing down and trying to focus on the hardware. So at this point, we have slipped a little bit on our revenue, and we are now migrating from selling vegetables directly to the end consumers to the hardware and the software platform, where we give information to people who can sell or do the connect, where we only provide intelligence. So we are in the journey of migration, and in this financial year we will again cross the revenue, and probably we will get to double of that, which is more than probably we'll touch probably about 2 million or more. And in the subsequent years we'll do probably much better with all the OEM interests that we see from a number of companies in India and outside India for white labeling our product. So over to you, Akshay.
Sir, would you like to take any further questions, or you think you've answered all of them?
I think, I was trying to glance through. Looks like I have answered at least most of them.
Okay, sir. Then so I think it's time to thank you, sir. It's a great session which you had. I can see a lot of comments on the chat window telling that the session has been very, very informative. So thank you again. And for participants, is a company which is incubated at CIIC, and we've been a small part of the journey. We try to help a small bit wherever possible from our end. So thank you again, participants, to join. Mr. Benjamin, you would want to say anything?
Yeah, thank you so much to the participants. I didn't expect 150 plus participants to be hooked up from start to end, and it was very nice and very meaningful questions posted. Very nice interacting with you all, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. So certificates for the program would be shared in a few days. Participants, I'm going to end the webinar. You may choose to leave. Thank you. Thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, bye.